Hi everyone, I am playing Veer Champion 2024. Okay, let's see what happens. Game 75, sorry, not 25. I lost my last game to the same guy I lost 3 games ago, and it was a Queen and Rook endgame, equal, and then I blundered. Okay, so this is going to be a Benko or a Benoni. It's going to be interesting in any case. I am preparing for a tournament that starts in 18 days, just after New Year's. So I'm gonna try to play as many games as I can. I'm still finishing the analysis of my last 3 tournament games from Dubrovnik. So yeah, I will post those next week definitely. Probably the first one will go out tomorrow. Okay, so the modern Benoni. E4 is the main move, but I don't have to play E4. What do I want to do? Wow, I haven't played against the modern Benoni in a long time. I'm actually tempted to go for a line that Faustino Oro has played against the FIDE Master recently, about 2 or 3 months ago. He played the line with bishop f4, e3, h3, and then e4 only later. So I'm going to try that. I don't have any experience in this line, but this is something I wanted to learn. So I don't know the theory here. I know the ideas. The idea is not to play e4 and therefore not to allow black a target on e4 after g6, bishop g7, and so on. And also you put pressure on the d6 pawn. I think this is the move order because you're going to have to go bishop f4 before you play e3. I'm not sure if you're supposed to start with knight f3. I don't know. If knight h5, I'm guessing bishop g3, and they just trade. Maybe this isn't the line at all. Maybe it doesn't start this way because my opponent's 2400 and confused. People who play the modern Benoni usually know their stuff. Of course, the main line is e4, but yeah, I'm gonna try to make this work. So Faustino Oro played bishop f4, then e3, and I think he played h3 pretty quickly to prepare knight f3, because after knight f3, knight h5 is a move. Although then there's bishop g5. So I'm not sure. Maybe I do go knight f3 first after e3, and only then h3. So the idea is you tuck your bishop away on h2, and you just continue your development normally, bishop d3 and so on. So if you don't know this line, Faustino Oro was white against... I definitely don't remember who exactly, but it was a round robin tournament, I think. Okay, so now if knight h5, I still lose my bishop, but I think it made very little sense to go h3 first. At least the h file will be open if knight h5, bishop g3 takes, h takes. So I believe in learning openings by making mistakes. I don't like memorizing a ton of theory. So if I want to learn a line and I haven't studied it before, I'll just try playing it. I mean, it's not like it's a rated tournament game. So the question is now, if my opponent just goes bishop g7, do I play knight f3 or h3? I think knight f3, because if bishop g7, knight f3, knight h5, bishop g5, f6, bishop h4 seems okay. Although there could be g5, f5, and so on. I don't know. If I throw in h3, is that a big waste of time? I don't know. So the whole point behind the line is that there's no target on e4. So after bishop g7 castles, rook e8 doesn't do anything. So, and also, as I said, there's pressure on d6. The usual plan for this knight is here. So h3 also prevents bishop g4, because this is black's bad bishop. And okay, I have to throw in a4. This is black's bad bishop, and black wants to go bishop g4 and trade in for anything. Okay, now do I go knight f3 or h3? Knight f3, knight h5, bishop g5, f6, bishop h4, g5, bishop g3, or g5. I can take the knight. So I think knight f3 is okay. No, sorry, knight d2, and then the knight's hanging on g5. So knight h5, bishop g5, f6. Okay. Moot point. Now I think I do go h3, preventing knight h5 and bishop g4, because bishop g4 may have been a threat. Now I have time for bishop d3, knight d2, knight c4. And if you've seen the World Championship games in the Benoni structure, sorry, let me get rid of the arrows. Okay, so my opponent's playing knight e8 so that they can go knight d7 without dropping the pawn. Other than that, I don't think f5 is the idea. I don't think bishop takes c3 is the idea, so I'll just continue developing. Okay, now, if I go knight d2, there's knight e5. However, if knight e5 now, if I take with the knight, then d5, bishop h2 seems fine. Although I do drop my d pawn after bishop c3, bc3, queen d5. Okay, so maybe on knight e5 I take with the bishop, d5, and then I have bishop c2. Okay, I'm gonna castle. I don't see a big problem with this. c4 doesn't seem too concerning for the moment. Okay. So knight e5, d5, bishop h2. There's no bishop c3 because there's a pawn on c5. But my opponent very likely wants to play knight d6 and set up a blockade after I take. So they are planning to go knight e5, d5, bishop h2, knight d6, controlling the f5 square and controlling c4. So I don't really want to take this knight. In fact, I'm sure I don't want to take the knight. However, if I don't take the knight, then probably my opponent's going to go c4 at some point, and then the knight's coming into d3. I also don't want to allow knight takes d3. Because without the knight being able to come to d6, without the e8 knight being able to come to d6, I'm not really sure what black is supposed to do. So I'll just go bishop c2. And on c4, my knight's gonna get the d4 square. I don't want to activate the e8 knight. If I take on e5, then this pawn disappears and the knight comes to d6, and it's controlling all the key squares. So that's not something I'm ready to allow. For the moment, the bishop on c8 is pretty inactive. Okay, this doesn't really change much. Doesn't change much. I could go bishop h2, knight e5, d5, e4. Because I don't want to take with the bishop. I'm gonna bring my bishop back. And now when I take, I don't lose a tempo. I have time for e4. So even if the knight does come to d6, I'll have a protected passed pawn. And my opponent's gonna be able to break that with f5. But I feel like f5 is gonna be pretty risky. If my opponent plays c4, I will immediately take on e5. The thing is, when I take on e5, my opponent's going to block the g7 bishop. Okay. So I don't know if I should trade or not. I mean on b5. So AB, AB. So for example, knight e5, d5, e4, b4, knight e2 seems pleasant to me. Or if takes. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go for that. I'm gonna create a protected passed pawn. Now that I'm not losing a tempo with my bishop. Okay, now e4 or knight e4. Knight e4 runs into f5, but there is knight takes c5. Knight e4, let's say queen c7 or rook c8. e4 is the safe move. Knight e4 is more active. I feel like I should go for this long-term advantage. I'm playing e4. I know that the knight's coming to d6. I know that, but it feels like it's a pleasant advantage, nevertheless. Of course, if my opponent plays b4, they are giving away the light squares, so they probably continue with c4 immediately afterwards. But then if they do go c4, the knight on d6 does not have the c4 square. So we both have a passed pawn. Should I clarify the situation now? Should I go takes? I don't know. I mean, I can also go f4 straight away, but that's kind of scary. I would love to bring my knight to e3. And I have to defend the c4 square, so I'm gonna go queen e2. And if knight c4, I have b3. If b4, I have knight d1. If c4, knight b7, knight c5 is the idea. I'll think of something. This way I'm also reinforcing f4, because my queen defends the e-pawn along with the bishop. The knight can always be chased away. And the bishop on g7 is blocked, which is my biggest... Okay, so I was thinking knight d1, knight e3. So knight d1, c4, knight e3, b3, bishop b1, rook c8, rook c1. Okay, it seems to work. My knight on e3, if, that's not gonna happen, but if I could get my knight to c4, I think white's position would be strategically extremely dominant. Okay, so knight e3, b3, bishop b1, rook c8, rook c1, queen c7 is the defense. Okay, I'm going for that. And I can also transfer my knight back to c3 if b3 is played. Okay, place that immediately. Okay. So is it time for f4? Because if b3 is played, then a lot of squares are given away. I may have to worry about f4 because there's queen b6. Still, counterplay is key. Maybe my opponent can just get away with f6, but b3 doesn't work now because I take on e5. Okay, on queen b6, king h1, bishop h6, I have bishop g1, so it's fine. I should have factored in that I'm unleashing the bishop on b2, so this may have been a dreadful blunder. Okay, f6, I'm happy to see that. Now the bishop's gonna stay blocked. I think my opponent should have taken, because then the bishop on on g7 becomes active. Okay, so I'm actually looking at knight g4 now. I'm gonna trade rooks first, because if my opponent takes and I take with the rook, there's b3 winning the a pawn. So I'm gonna throw in a trade and then probably play knight g4. Queen takes. Okay, I don't think the tempo with rook f1 is useful, because I'm gonna be losing the pawn. But knight g4 does seem interesting. Knight g4, b3, bishop b1. Okay, knight g4. I have to play actively. If this is traded, I have queen e6 in the end. And on queen e6, I can take on e5. There's no queen f7. Well, there is because the knight defends the rook, but okay. Tough position. Okay, I'm gonna go queen e3. I will allow my opponent to take on g4 if they want to. If c3, I'll go b3. If b3, I'll go bishop d1. And I may be threatening to come in on a7 or on h6, depending on what my opponent does. For example, queen f7 would be losing because of bishop e5. Well, it wouldn't make much sense in any case, but I'm just saying. Also, after queen a7, my pawn on a4 isn't hanging and I can move my rook because the bishop's pinned to the queen. And I will be threatening knight e5, bishop e5, queen e5, queen d7. But then knight e4, there's queen c8. So maybe that works, I don't know. And ooh, what? Okay, the knight's coming to c5. Can I play queen a7? Queen a7, knight c5, defends the bishop, puts pressure on the pawn. Yeah, that works. But what if I go queen g3? Queen g3, b3. Bishop b1. Okay, I'm gonna go queen g3. I'm not convinced, but I think my opponent has to play rook e8. Yeah. So now if I go king h1, knight c5, bishop g1, I can also go knight e3 now. Knight e3, queen c5. Knight e3, b3, bishop b1, c3 takes. I actually like that. I'm gonna do that. Just switching plans from one weakness to the other. Maybe I should have gone king h1 first, but okay. Definitely king h1 and bishop g1. If bishop h6, I go knight g4, and on bishop f4, I can go knight f6 check. And once the king moves, I can take on d7, because the queen is hanging on c5. So bishop h6, knight g4, bishop f4, knight f6 check, king, let's say g7, knight takes d7, queen moves. Yeah, that seems okay. Okay. Okay, bishop g1. I'm down to 2 minutes. I have to start playing quickly. The queen cannot get away from a dark square. That's funny. I'm gonna get in knight f5 whatever happens. The queen is trapped on the dark squares. Knight f5, queen b4, knight d6, queen d6, bishop d1, bishop a4. Doesn't work. Okay, I'm playing knight f5. I don't see anything else. You gotta get rid of the knight on d6. That's the blockader. That's the best piece. Oh, I'm an idiot. Ah, idiot. No. Okay, maybe I can still get away with queen g4. Can I oh, I didn't see this at all. Let's try queen g4. I didn't see that my queen was hanging at all. Now just knight d4. And I can save. Oh, no. Queen d7, queen e8. Okay, maybe not. Yeah, okay. Now I resign. I didn't see that knight g3 was attacking my queen. Oh, no. Okay. If you're like me and you think practicing against the engine is boring because it either crushes you or plays like an idiot, try playing against Nocti. Nocti is a human-like AI that's going to adapt to your strength, is going to play like a human, try to trick you like a human, and challenge you on your own level. The first thing you can do is, of course, assess your rating, and you can play a rating test against Nocti. Yeah, the only move is g4 and then queen f4 mate. Yeah. Good. Yes! 2557! Come on! It's going to tell you your strength, but there are many, many more features. The first thing is, when you play Nocti, you get instant feedback, and all of your moves will get sort of color-coded. Nocti will immediately tell you if you made a mistake. That way you can ask Nocti to see where you went wrong. You can play games in openings you're trying to learn. So you can import any repertoire you want and play Nocti in that specific opening. Just go to repertoires. I've imported the Hillbilly when I was doing the video on the Hillbilly, but you can obviously create any repertoire. Just paste the PGN, and if you, for example, play the London system, you can play the London system against Nocti. Flashcards are an excellent tool, and I've spoken to Samuel, the owner and inventor of Nocti. He's going to make them even better. Flashcards are basically the mistakes you made in your games. Nocti is going to make you pay attention to them, and in the future they're going to be grouped according to theme, so it's going to be even easier to navigate your mistakes. One of my favorite features, if not my favorite one, and the one I use the most, is themes. So you can play Nocti in any specific position you choose. So if you go to your themes, you can see that I've made quite a few. So let's say you want to play out this position. This is a position from Spassky's game where he triangulated perfectly. If you're trying to practice something, you can create a new theme. Just add an FEN or a PGN and play it out against Nocti. That way, if you have an endgame you would like to practice, you don't have to find an actual human to play against, nor will you have to play against a 2800 engine or against a 500 engine human. If you would like to check Nocti out, you can follow the link in the description, and if you would like to get a 64% discount, use the code HANGING Pawns. Thank you very much for this. Thank you, Nocti, for sponsoring the video, and let's get back. Let's see. Okay, so bishop f4. Let's see. g6, e3. Okay, where is that game? e3. Wait, I don't have to play a4? What? Okay, so now we have transposed. I still don't see the Faustino Oro game. The main move is queen e7, although knight e8 is quite popular. Bishop d3. Wait, why does everyone play bishop e2? I guess to save the e-pawn. I ended up moving my bishop again. I should have gone e4. Oof. Yeah, knight e4 was better, equal. ab5 was fine. After e4 I'm losing. Wow. I should have constantly had the opportunity to play b3. Yeah, I just didn't see. I just didn't see that my queen was hanging. So there isn't much I could have done, I guess. Knight f5 is the best move. Knight f5 just loses. Yeah, ef5 is just very bad. Yeah, okay. I had no blunders, that's unlikely. Okay, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more chess. See you in the next one. Bye bye.